fans, I simulated a dinosaur ecosystem in Jurassic World Evolution Free to see how dinosaurs can adapt, survive, and reproduce on a randomly generated island. Will life find a way, or will all life be doomed to die? Well, if we're going to figure that out, we have to go back to the beginning. Before we could actually start making dinosaurs, I had to make the island using the random island generator feature in Jurassic World Evolution Free. I tweaked the shape of the island, the trees, water, and mountain until I got the combination I wanted. I'm just gonna fast forward this until it gets to the part of the island I wanted. Fast forward. After getting the island I wanted, I started by getting my operations ready. A hatchery, which we would use to release the dinos, and a responsive facility, just in case if I needed a little assistance with the dinosaurs, a maintenance facility, just in case if a storm rolled around and I needed repairing, and eventually I decided on a black market for certain dinosaurs, which I did use occasionally throughout this video. After hiding my facilities with some trees, I released the first creature in the ecosystem, the Lokiceratops, which got its name because its horns looked like the crown that the trickster god Loki wears. Isn't that neat?
One of my Loki
After that, I made sure there was enough
when
water
you hear that name,
and
no doubt,
plants to go
you think
around
of the
so
Norse
they wouldn't
trickster
starve
god
to death.
Loki.
By the way, this first area will be called the Great Valley. Many dinosaurs will be here later, which we'll meet some of those creatures later in the video. After making sure they had enough plants and water, I made sure to plant down a nest so that they could so they can lay eggs, hopefully. And so let's just hope that they can reproduce later on in the video. After adding the Lokiceratops, I decided to add in the quick and feathered Ornithomimus, which I bought the Ornithomimus off the black market.
We are pleased to welcome
Shortly after the Ornithomimus were released, there was a fight with the Lokiceratops for a role of alpha of the herd. This was very important as it would decide who was the alpha of the herd, and only one Lokiceratops could come out on top. After the fight the Lokiceratops had, I discovered that they had successfully laid eggs. This means that eventually they would hatch into new baby Lokiceratops. So we'll check on these eggs later. After that, I decided to give the Ornithomimus some new friends. The Styracosaurus had entered the neighborhood.
This animal is like a prehistoric rhino.
As the sun setted on the ecosystem, I saw that the Lokiceratops had finally hatched, bringing a new generation of Lokiceratops into this world. These newborn Lokiceratops were extremely curious about their new habitat, but until new predators were introduced, they could play around in the mud wherever they please. Welcome to the beach. This is the beach biome. Many piscivores will come here, which are basically fish eaters, but other dinosaurs will be here soon. And speaking of new dinosaurs that like the water, let's introduce a new dinosaur to the beach biome. For the first beach biome species, I decided to introduce the semi-aquatic predator the Suchomimus. I was extremely
Ladies and
nervous about
gentlemen,
them
we
as
are
they were
pleased to welcome the
extremely
Suchomimus
close
to
to
the
the Great Valley, but they would probably stay near the water. Also, I named this Suchomimus Scar, and also that if there's no fish around, they will not hesitate in hunting prey, but for now they're pretty chill. I decided to introduce a new species to the Great Valley, the adorable Dryosaurus.
Ooh, the Dryosaurus is a speedy.
Apparently, the game says that the Suchomimus likes the Baryonyx, so I introduced the free Baryonyxes into the beach biome. Hopefully, they can coexist with the Suchomimus peacefully, or else we will have a war going on. Only time will tell if they'll get along. As the sun started to rise on the island, I decided to introduce another species into the Great Valley, the Parasaurolophus. I was then brought to the beach biome to find that a new trio of baby Suchomimus were born on the coast of the beach biome. These baby Suchomimus were extremely excited to explore their new home, as I did see a couple of Suchomimus babies playing around in the water and sand of the beach. I even saw the baby Suchomimuses learning to swim for the first time. Hopefully the peace would last. A couple of minutes after the baby Suchomimuses were born, I introduced the first competition to the Suchomimus and Baryonyxes, the Atrociraptors, pack hunters.
Underestimate the Atrociraptor and it could be the last thing you ever do. I've heard rumors of them getting trained to attack specific targets.
Will be the first
We should
real
give our
competition
animals a
for the
better life than that.
Suchomimus and Baryonyxes. Hopefully we can just have the peace just for a little longer before chaos starts. I was then brought to the Great Valley again to find that some adorable baby Dryosauruses were born in the Great Valley. Life was finding a way on this island. After a long era of peace in the Great Valley, I decided to introduce the first predator into the Great Valley, the crown dragon itself, Wanlong. With the addition of Wanlong now in the Great Valley, parent dinosaurs will have to watch out for their young, just in case if a Wanlong's around, as they don't want their offspring to get hunted. War had started between the Baryonyx and Suchomimus, as I caught a Baryonyx trying to attack a Suchomimus. After that brief fight with the Baryonyx and Suchomimus, I discovered that the Baryonyx had successfully laid an egg. Hopefully when that egg hatches, they'll be able to protect it. While I discovered a brand new egg for the Baryonyx, a Atrociraptor was in pursuit of a Dryosaurus that strayed too far from the Great Valley and was killed. Back in the Great Valley, I found a Wanlong and Lokiceratops challenging each other, but the two creatures decided it wouldn't be worth a fight. I decided to give the free baby Suchomimus all names, so meet the sister trio of Suchomimus named Molly, Mia, and Sandy. Eventually, the Baryonyx that Scar beat up in a fight came to challenge him once more. And let's just say this fight didn't end in the Baryonyx's favor. The Baryonyx slander wasn't over just yet, as a Baryonyx was getting pack hunted by a couple of Atrociraptors, so it had to fight for its life if it wanted to live. Eventually, the Atrociraptors gave up the hunt as they saw that it wasn't worth killing a Baryonyx for. The Baryonyx was safe for now. After staying in the nest for so long, the Baryonyx baby started to take its first steps on in the ecosystem, the Baryonyxes had found a way to survive. Eventually, at night, some baby Atrociraptors hatched, taking their first steps into the ecosystem. These little critters would eventually grow up into deadly pack hunters. The parents were extremely busy as they were taking down a Baryonyx. With the combined skills, the Baryonyx was a goner. Something I realized about the beach biome is that it had a lack of herbivores, so I decided to introduce the first beach biome herbivore. The Triceratops had entered the beach biome. Things were actually peaceful in the Great Valley, despite the new Wanlongs, as some baby Parasaurolophus took their first steps into the ecosystem. But the parents would have to keep watch of them as a new predator was about to be introduced. With razor-sharp teeth ready to tear anything apart, the Metriacanthosaurus had entered the Great Valley. Meanwhile, in the beach biome, a Suchomimus decided to pick a fight with a Triceratops. This most likely happened because either one of them stepped too close in the other's territory. The fight was extremely brief as they both decided to run away. Once again, back in the Great Valley, some baby Wanlongs were taking their first steps into the Great Valley. Hopefully their parents will keep an eye on them. Near the shore of the beach biome, I found a dead Triceratops, which a bunch of Atrociraptors were near, so it was most likely hunted down by them. Something tragic had happened in the beach biome as the baby Baryonyx walked too close into Scar's territory. This could mean extinction for the Baryonyx species. A new predator was getting added to the ecosystem, the Carnotaurus, which this area that it's in we'll call the grassland for now on. Back in the beach biome, a Triceratops had walked too close into Suchomimus territory for their liking. It had begun a fight with yet another Suchomimus. Back in the Great Valley, a Wanlong just got done with a fight with a Lokiceratops and I got a concussion. Hopefully it would be able to recover from its injury. A couple minutes later, a Wanlong decided to have a fight with a Lokiceratops, and only if things got deadly, then one of them would die. Eventually, the Lokiceratops retreated since the fight wasn't really worth it. As the rain poured down heavily, the Wanlongs decided to cause some trouble with the Lokiceratops. And oh, that Wanlong would regret that. After the rain stopped, a new predator was introduced into the grasslands. The largest Dromaeosaur itself, Utahraptor, had entered the grasslands.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are pleased to welcome a Utahraptor to the park.
These massive Dromaeosaurs are here to cause chaos in the grasslands and possibly competition for the Carnotaurus. Speaking of the Carnotaurus was in pursuit of a Ornithomimus, but let's just say, the hunt did not succeed. After the same Carnotaurus failed to hunt, it decided to try again, and this time it succeeded in the hunt. When I was checking back on the Suchomimus, it said that they were extremely close to becoming full-grown adults, which was really good. But if they want to become full-grown adults, they'll have to play their cards right.
Bonus clip of Scar the Suchomimus sister trio's father taking care of his children.
After a long time, the Triceratops had successfully reproduced and had 2 baby trikes in their family. Unfortunately, a baby Suchomimus had met the end of its run, as it strayed too far from the adults and walked into a Triceratops territory, leading to its untimely death. This proves that this ecosystem can be brutal at times. Unfortunate news happened in the Great Valley as a poor baby Lokiceratops was killed by a Metricamphosaurus, unfortunately. I had been introducing lots of large creatures, so I decided to change it up a bit and introduce the small but deadly Dilophosaurus. These little menaces from the Jurassic will be even more competition for the other carnivores, so we might have a full-on carnivore war going on soon in the grasslands. As night came upon the ecosystem, I found a Utahraptor who successfully murdered a poor Ornithomimus. Too bad it couldn't run away fast enough. I eventually got news hearing that one of the first ever juvenile Styracosaurus had finally grown up into a full-grown Styracosaurus. They grow up so fast. I felt like I was introducing way too many carnivores, so to handle all the carnivore problems in the Great Valley and grasslands, I decided to introduce the Ankylosaurus into the Great Valley first. The Lokiceratops were done with the Metricamphosaurus and decided to pick a fight with one of them,
and also one of the premier species in this facility.
But let's just say little bro did
depend
not
on
have
how
claw
well we
armor.
take care of it.
Continuing with the whole growing up thing, one of our original baby Lokiceratops had grown into a beautiful full-grown adult. All these dinos keep growing up so fast. Eventually in the grasslands, I noticed that one of the Carnotaurus had successfully killed a Utahraptor. I eventually named the Carnotaurus, who also killed that Ornithomimus earlier, Killer. After that, some adorable baby Carnotaurus had finally hatched out their eggs after so long, and they would be able to roam the grasslands now. After the adorable Carnotaurus were born, as I said earlier, I wanted to balance out all the carnivores, so I decided to introduce another herbivore, the Stegosaurus.
Stegosaurus might seem calm and docile, but there's no sense letting your guard down. If it's uncomfortable or provoked, it could do a lot of damage to our fences. Trust me on that.
For some strange reason, my Ankylosaurus were fighting for the role of alpha of the duo in my facility. So I guess they like living in the facility? I don't know, I just found them hanging out and fighting each other in there for no reason. I eventually then found something even stranger. A Metricamphosaurus had wandered into the grassland biome and had started a fight with a Carnotaurus.
While the lacerations on this animal may not look that serious,
but the Metricamphosaurus left the fight with lagration,
which we want to avoid.
Eventually, after so long, our Baryonyx trio of Molly, Sandy, and Mia had finally reached adulthood. This was an amazing milestone, and now they can actually protect themselves from some of the other predators. And this was an amazing milestone. After the celebration of the Suchomimus trio, a Carnotaurus was getting hunted by a couple of Dilophosaurus, but it was also inflicted with a poison during this hunt. While yes, it did succeed in getting away, it did have poison, as I said. Only time will tell if it will recover from this deadly poison. I decided to check on the Utah Raptors, and they successfully had baby Utah Raptors. But the last adult was killed, meaning these two would have to rely on each other for survival. I decided to give them the names Sally and Marcy. Loud footsteps echoed across the ecosystem. The Tyrannosaurus Rex, the Tyrant Lizard King, has arrived. Everything would tremble in fear against the T-Rex. But there isn't just one. There's two of them. Let me introduce you into Sarah and Ryan, the T-Rexes. Shortly after the race, both the T-Rexes, instead of reproducing, they decide to fight each other for role of the alpha of the duo. Eventually, Sarah came out on top, roaring at Ryan, telling him to leave the territory. I decided to add another carnivore into the Great Valley, introducing the Proceratosaurus. Let's see if they stand a chance against the carnivores. I decided to introduce our first sauropod into the Great Valley, introducing the majestic Apatosaurus. While the Apatosaurus was entering the ecosystem, Mia had brutally murdered a Dryosaurus due to her walking too far away from the lake. Unfortunately, Ryan the T-Rex had unfortunately starved to death after the rainstorm. A very unfortunate death. After Ryan's unfortunate death, I introduced the Maiasaura into the beach biome.
That our weather forecasts predict an incoming hurricane.
One of the first dinosaurs discovered to have nesting colonies, the Maiasaura is both social and relatively friendly. Its name means good mother lizard. And what an appropriate name it is.
Near the wetlands part of the beach biome, a lone Atrociraptor decided to try attacking a Parasaurolophus that strayed too far from the Great Valley. After fighting off the lone Atrociraptor, the Parasaurolophus got to see another day. During a storm, Sandy decided to challenge the alpha of the Suchomimus herd. Only time will tell if she becomes the new leader. A Atrociraptor decided to go for a Maiasaura. The alone Atrociraptor decided to go for a Maiasaura this time and would not fail, and tried to not fail this time. Just like with the Parasaurolophus hunt, the Atrociraptor failed. Meanwhile, while everything else was happening, a new apex predator was introduced to the grassland biome, the deadly South American predator, Giganotosaurus. Back with Sarah the T-Rex, she was still somehow alive, and a couple minutes ago just killed a Lokiceratops that had wandered too far away from the Great Valley. Back with Killer the Carnotaurus, she had just killed a Styracosaurus, a worthy meal to eat. The Giganotosaurus decided to fight the Stegosaurus, which I decided to name the Giganotosaurus Brian because he was hungry. He wanted a fight. But unfortunately, he came out of this fight with internal bleeding. It was uncertain if he would survive the night. And back in the beach biome, a new predator was introduced. Meet Lemon the Spinosaurus, which is the final creature before the most deadliest and craziest event in this ecosystem. The Rumble. Basically what the Rumble will be, I'll add some last minute addition dinosaurs and then let time run for 1 hour. 1 hour and see if the dinosaurs can adapt, survive, and reproduce to see if they can find ways to survive. But I'll also be, alongside with the last minute additions, I'll be adding 2 species that aren't even from the prehistoric age and that are from the future. Anyways, cue the montage of the new dinosaurs. Taco friends. Duckbill friends.
Rip Bra and Sad Face.
Meat-eating friends. Long big friends. Raptor friends. Fast friends. Tiny friends. Tiny meat-eating friends.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are pleased to welcome
Chunky meat-eating friend.
Introducing the high-spined lizard, the Acrocanthosaurus, the prominent
Feathered raptor friends.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are pleased to welcome the Deinonychus to the
It is time for the Rumble. Hunts and fights will now be turned on, and I will start the timer. So cue the montage of the Rumble. I decided to introduce 2 species that weren't even from the prehistoric age and were caused by a paradox. And the first paradox species was the Spinoraptor, a creation from the future that somehow made its way into the ecosystem due to a paradox portal. It was a combination of Spinosaurus and Velociraptor. Oh yeah, I forgot to record this by introducing Indominus Rex and Cupcake, and yeah, her reign of terror was shortly lived. checking on the Suchomimus nest, I realized Sandy had successfully laid eggs and soon would be a Suchomimus mama.
Rip Lemon, sad face. Rip Killer.
Sandy's baby's hatched. Named this little fella, Little Folk.
Just like how I did with Molly, Mia, and Sandy, I decided to name Sandy's babies. I named them Sophia, Larry, and Bob. Okay, so I realized that Sally the lone baby Utah Raptor wasn't a girl at all. She was actually a boy, so I made sure to rename him to Leo. You may now rest, Sarah. After a fight with a Spinoraptor, Molly had gone in lageration. Hopefully she would be able to survive and recover from her wounds.
Rip Sophia.
You and your sister can rest now.
A juvenile Stegosaurus. Certainly more impressive than a big iguana. Oh, and some advice that I wish one Ms. Sarah Harding would have listened to long ago. Don't get too close. Absolutely, don't touch. Don't.
Unfortunately, one of our first Suchomimus, Scar, had died in a fight with a Spinoraptor. The father of the Suchomimus sister trio was dead, unfortunately. Unfortunately, Molly would also succumb to her wounds, as the wounds from the Spinoraptor fight were too much, and Molly passed away unfortunately, leaving Sandy and Mia to fend for themselves. I decided to introduce one more dinosaur into the ecosystem as the rumble started to end, the Verazenosaurus. With razor-sharp claws, this would be a worthy adversary to go for a meal. As the Stegosauruses fought for territory one last time, the rumble had come to an end. Ladies and gentlemen, and that there was the rumble. This experiment shows that this is how fast an ecosystem can rise and fall. Sandy and Mia, despite losing their father and sister, are still thriving and surviving. With Larry and Bob, Sandy's hatchlings, still surviving. Our Acrocanthosaurus, on the other hand, he just kind of sat back and relaxed this whole time. Despite almost being driven to extinction, our first species, the Lokiceratops, is still thriving. This ecosystem has so many wonderful species that have all fought to survive throughout this video. In my opinion, they are all magnificent. As I say goodbye to Sandy as she takes one more swim, this ecosystem comes to a close. But why is the ground shaking, and what is that weird ball of light in the sky? Oh no. Welcome to Isla Blimblar, the same island where the ecosystem once was. The meteorite has wiped out all dinosaurs, and you can find skeletons of some of the dinosaurs that were in the ecosystem. Despite all the dinosaurs in the ecosystem being wiped out due to the meteor, stories can always be retold.